Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sarah Sperber and I am a realtor in the Northern Nevada market. I make all kinds of content about real estate, everything you need to know about buying and selling, and also everything you need to know about living in our amazing city and surrounding areas of Reno, Nevada. So on today's video, I'm going to tell you my best tips for how to sell your home without a realtor. Let's go ahead and dive on in. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this concept, you may have seen homes for sale on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, even on Zillow, because sellers have the option of posting their listings there. Usually they are marked with a little thing that says FSBO. That stands for sale by owner. So my first tip would be to definitely put it on Zillow. A lot of people don't understand that that's actually accessible to everyone, not just to realtors. So you can put it there to get maximum exposure. However, without an agent representing you, it is going to have that little tag FSBO for sale by owner. Let's talk about some of the benefits of bypassing your realtor, AKA hopefully me, if you do make that decision. Honestly, a lot of people decide to try to DIY the home sale process because they're trying to save money on agent compensation, which is understandable. Agent compensation does cost money. Obviously, we're providing a service and expertise and all kinds of other things, marketing, in exchange for being compensated for our time and expertise with all of that. One thing I just wanted to say is that according to the National Association of Realtors, sellers actually net 16% more when they list with a realtor. So just to kind of debunk that notion, you actually, even if you are paying realtor compensation out of your net proceeds, you're still likely to net 16% more listing with an agent than trying to DIY it or Fsbo it, as we call it, for sale by owners. So let's just get into some of the nitty-gritty here. Listing and selling your home might not be as straightforward as it seems. The first thing you're going to want to do is prepare your home for sale. So when I go in and have a seller consultation or listing appointment with a seller, I will walk through the property, point out anything and everything that I feel should be kind of handled prior to the listing going live on the market. This might be like minor or cosmetic repairs. This might be areas that need to be decluttered or cleaned, or, any kind of like touch-ups, curb appeal. We talk about all of those things. So if you are doing this without an agent, you're going to want to kind of get rid of your preconceived notions as somebody who has lived in and possibly loved the home that you're trying to sell. You're going to want to picture the most likely buyer of who the home is going to be and try to put yourself in their shoes and think about what kind of lifestyle they would be envisioning. Because at the end of the day, you might think you're selling a home, but you're actually selling a lifestyle. So with that, you can come up with certain cues of what might need to be replaced, repaired. One thing you could do if you are trying to sell or list without an agent is have a pre-listing home inspection performed. My go-to here in our market is Armstrong Inspections. They are out of Sparks, but they travel all over anywhere in our MLS. They're fantastic. You can book the appointment online, and depending on the square footage of your home, that's going to run you probably about $400 to $500. Again, it depends on the size of your home, but that way you'll at least understand all the things that are wrong with your home. And then when you go to sell your home, you can say, hey, we had a pre-listing inspection done and I fixed X, Y, and Z. Here are all the receipts. Here's everything. That might put a buyer at ease, especially if you don't have professional representation. Also, just to be very clear, doing that inspection prior to listing is not required. The first thing after you get your pre-listing things out of the way that you're going to want to handle is pricing your listing. And yes, everybody has access to Zillow. Yes, Zillow does give you their Zestimate, but I have to point this out because I've actually had this conversation so many times in the last 2 weeks, and that is that AI can detect certain things. They can detect number of baths, number of bedrooms, square footage. So when they're pulling comps, it's probably going to give you somewhat of an idea of your price range. But what Zillow cannot detect and other AI platforms is, if you've done any updates, if there's something in disrepair. At this very moment, the consumer does not necessarily have access to run a thorough CMA or comparative market analysis. So that's where an agent can really come in with their expertise. Make sure that, when you're trying to price your home, you're keeping all of that in mind, especially if you are choosing not to work with an agent. Marketing your home. All right, this is a big one, and I think that there are a lot of ways to market your home if you are DIYing it. Obviously, I mentioned a few. An agent is able to put it on the MLS, which syndicates to all the key players. Obviously, your Realtor.com, your Redfin.com, your Zillow, all of those things. Another thing that's absolutely imperative is having professional photos taken. I was looking at a Fsbo maybe like a month ago in our market. I think it was on Craigslist. And the first photo that these people chose to represent their home was obviously something that they felt was like a selling point. It was the view from their front porch, but did not show the home whatsoever. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I get why somebody would do that, because they're like, oh, look at this spectacular view. But you could be standing on anything. You could be standing on a pile of rocks. People don't know what they're buying when that's what you show them. Your frame of reference as somebody who's lived in / loved your home is not going to be the best frame of reference for highlighting it to a potential buyer. If you are choosing to not work with an agent, make sure that you, at bare minimum, hire a professional photographer, and not only any photographer, hire a real estate photographer. That this is what they do. This is what they're living and breathing every day. They are so skilled at arranging things, getting the right angles, making rooms really seem bigger, well lit, all of that. Because if you guys search through some of the Fsbo listings, you can drastically see the difference between a Fsbo with DIY photos or a professionally photographed listing. Another thing that you'll have to keep in mind if you're selling your home without an agent is that you are going to be solely responsible for handling all inquiries, all showings. I mean, I don't even know. Can you have an open house? I guess you could have open houses. I don't know exactly how you would advertise that without MLS. The other thing that you really need to keep in mind is security, because if you are not an agent and you're just letting strangers into your home, I mean, that's going to be difficult to kind of make sure everything remains secure. We use Super lock boxes. They are Bluetooth activated. They can only be unlocked through an app on your phone that you're only given if you are a licensed agent. The alternative to that, if you're doing a Fsbo, is probably a contractor box with a combination code or something similar. Those are not at all the same level of security, so you're going to want to keep that in mind. Make sure that you have a lot of awareness about safety if you're letting strangers into your home. Let's talk about legalities and paperwork. If you are DIYing the sale or the purchase of a home, you are putting yourself at risk of a lot of liability. Obviously, agents like me, we are steeped in this every day, all day. We are, whether we want to or not, we're forced to keep taking continuing education courses. A lot of those are in contracts and other, ethics, all kinds of super important topics that keep us sharp when it comes to what the laws are, what compliance means. Every intricacy of every contract are things that we are constantly being educated about. And I will tell you this kind of candidly, even though I've been doing this for years, I have a lot of experience, I can confidently tell you that every transaction that I do, I learn something new. It's really hard not to. Every buyer and seller situation is unique. Every property is unique. There is so much. I mean, you probably sign close to 1,000 pieces of paper when you buy or sell a home. And so if you don't concretely understand what each of those means and you're just blindly signing them, you may be putting yourself at risk for a lot of liability. I've heard a lot of disgruntled people lately, mostly on the internet, being like, well, just skip the realtor and hire an attorney. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you understand how expensive attorneys are? I don't know about you guys, but every time I've asked my attorney for anything, whether it be a 5-minute phone call or a 3-line email, I get a bill somehow for $400. I just don't understand the logic of let's save money by hiring an attorney. Those Those things don't even belong in the same sentence. But anyway, we also have file auditors. So on top of my set of eyes or any agent's set of eyes looking at it, when we submit it through our system at our brokerage, we all have file auditors that are checking for compliance issues, making sure we are not submitting any piece of paper on your behalf that could get you or us or anybody in trouble, and that it all looks sound. So that is really important, to make sure that you not only know what you're looking at and signing, but also that somebody who's very detail oriented and very trained and skilled at reviewing it all is doing that for you. Let's talk about negotiations. And this ties back to that statistic that I told you towards the beginning of this video, is that at the end of the day, I consider agents to be, above all, marketing professionals and negotiation professionals. That's really our two biggest roles in all of this, in my opinion. Maybe not everybody would agree. Most buyers are going to be represented by an agent. So if you're going kind of off on your own, if you're going rogue, DIY, Fsbo, and you're selling your home and you're up against a realtor, a buyer who has a realtor who knows what they're doing, that's putting you at a lot of risk. You're going to want to make sure that your negotiating skills are extremely, extremely sharp, or that maybe you just decide hey, I'm not equipped for this. I don't even know what to ask for. I don't know the difference between a seller credit or a price reduction. If you don't understand the intricacies of what could be requested, what they all mean, and what the implications are to your equity, then hey, maybe it's time to think about bringing in a pro. It may be worth it for you to hire somebody who knows what they're doing and can be efficient and get you what you need out of this. Just saying. Another thing that we need to touch on is how to screen buyers. If you're just getting an offer, that's not good enough. You need to make sure that you are verifying proof of funds. When I submit an offer on behalf of a buyer to the seller's agent, I have to submit a pre-approval letter from a lender and or proof of funds, some kind of bank statement that says they're paying cash, but here's all the money that they have. So here's proof that they can afford it. And one thing that you should definitely be aware of if you are still gung-ho on doing this yourself and selling without a realtor is that a pre-approval letter from a local lender has a much more likely chance of actually closing and closing on time than a lender who's some kind of big box lender. I'm not saying that they can't fund a loan. I'm just saying it's going to be a much more challenging transaction for everyone involved if it's not somebody in your community that you can reach out to and talk to. You want to be sure that you're able to coordinate all of the moving pieces. So the main contingencies that are kind of baked into an offer in our state are the financial piece, so the ability for the buyer to actually afford and purchase the home. The due diligence, which is all the home inspections, chimney inspection, pest, HVAC, all the things that can be inspected. And the third contingency that's sort of baked into the offer in our state is the appraisal. Obviously, that is when an appraiser is going to come to the property, and they do different kinds of appraisals based on what type of loan the buyer is buying with. So if you have a cash buyer, they have the ability to waive the appraisal. In some circumstances, even a finance deal, the appraisal can be waived, but it requires the permission from the lender and their underwriting team. If a buyer is using an FHA loan or a VA loan, there are going to be specific things that cannot be true about the property when it is appraised. For example, a VA loan, you cannot have peeling paint on the exterior. So without knowing a lot of this stuff, going in blindly, what might happen is that you will end up with a laundry list of repairs. You might want to check with an agent and just at least kind of understand what it is that you're working with. Also, the other thing to keep in mind with the appraisal is a lender can only finance up to the appraised amount. So let's say, for ease of numbers, you have the house under contract, you've accepted an offer for $600,000. The buyer is purchasing it with a loan, but it only appraises for $500,000. So now you've got this gap, and either you're going to have to come down, which if the other party, if the buyer is working with an agent, that's going to be their first request is we're not paying over the appraised value. So you're going to have to come down, or they're going to have to come up with funds outside of their loan to cover the gap, or there will be some kind of meet in the middle situation. There's just a lot of moving pieces. I think that there's this misconception out there that realtors don't actually do anything, but there's a lot of stuff that you need to look out for. So obviously, if you've watched this far, we've kind of touched on a lot of the major pieces of what you should and shouldn't do if you're trying to go the Fsbo route. If you are, I wish you good luck. If you are not, and you at this point are thinking, wow, there are actually a lot of things involved in this that I wasn't aware of, and you want to chat, we can book a free consultation. You can book a call with me just to get the ball rolling. There's a link in the show notes below. It's no pressure, no obligation. Even if I come to your home and we do a full listing presentation wherein I walk through the home and give you a valuation and give you, some items that I would recommend for you to handle before we list. Even if you decide at that moment, I still want to take this on myself, we can do that. That's fine. It's not obligatory. It's just a chance to connect, see if I can get your questions answered, see if we might be a good fit to work together. And if you are thinking of buying, I can help with that too. Feel free to reach out. And if you haven't already, please smash that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Reno Sparks housing market, the Northern Nevada lifestyle, and all things related to buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much, you guys, and I'll see you next time.